What's going on, Imperials? Pokemon Sun and Moon are filled to the brim with new Pokemon, items, and places, each with their own charm. It's been a real treat to discover all these fantastic new additions to the game, as well as coming across some unexpected and strange surprises. Like any generation, there's no shortage of new abilities that were introduced in Sun and Moon. Abilities are one of the best additions to have ever been made to the Pokemon games, essentially giving every Pokemon a free extra move slot. Some abilities are critical in battle, some are useful outside of battle, some are downright useless, and some Pokemon have even been designed specifically around their ability. So, we'll be taking a look at the best new abilities Sun and Moon have to offer. Number 6. Generation 3 and 5 Pokemon that received updated abilities. A Pokemon's ability can make or break them in terms of usage. Some decent Pokemon become overshadowed by alternatives simply because of their ability. And there are also Pokemon that would never be used if they didn't have a niche special advantage. This is why it's so great for these Pokemon to receive new abilities. Although weather is not the titan it once was in determining battles, it can still play a key role, so any and all Pokemon that can set up weather just by their presence has an instant draw. Torkoal received Drought, while Pelipper was gifted with Drizzle. These two abilities, of course, were first introduced by their mascot legendaries of the generation, Groudon and Kyogre. Instant Sun and Instant Rain have a myriad of useful combinations with other Pokemon, and previously, the options to set it up were few and far between. I just love that they're intentionally giving new life to old Pokemon. Torkoal's always been one of my favorite fire types, so I'm glad to see him finally get some more love. The same goes for Gigalith and Vanillux. Sandstorm is another useful weather condition that benefits a lot of different Pokemon. Now, maybe Gigalith can be used as much as Hippowdon. And poor Vanillux has been ragged on so much, maybe someone out there will finally use him on a team. Even though Hail is the least used weather condition, it may be a little more popular with the addition of the new ability, Slush Rush, that increases speed in Hail. There's been speed increasing abilities for every other weather condition, so hopefully this will be the first step in making Hail as useful and diverse as the rest of them. What I love about these changes is that they aren't hidden abilities or special releases. They simply saw that these underused Pokemon were in need of some kind of boost, and saw fit to fill that need. And we can all appreciate new updates to old favorites. Number 5. Long Reach. Long Reach is the new ability exclusive to the Rowlet line. This ability prevents added effects from moves that make direct contact. That means any status conditions or residual damage that would usually occur remains inert, just as if you had used a special move instead of a physical one. This means that Decidueye doesn't have to worry about other Pokemon's abilities like Iron Barbs, Poison Point, or Static, meaning that, at least for him, those Pokemon essentially don't have an ability. That's pretty powerful. This is especially good considering it can take advantage of Decidueye's slightly higher physical attack stat. This is the second generation in a row that the Grass starter has had a unique and very useful ability. Even though I haven't had the chance to use them yet, it sounds like Long Reach works the same as the new item, the Protective Pads, by protecting from additional effects from physical contact, which apparently is something they really wanted to address in this generation. The only reason this is so low on the list is because as of right now, this ability has not been released, and there's been no announcement as to when it might come out. So for now, Decidueye has the same mediocre ability every Grass starter is stuck with. Number 4. Stamina. Stamina is the ability exclusive to Mudbray and Mudsdale, and it seems almost too good to be true. Every time you get hit with an attack, your defense goes up. This essentially means that every time you're attacked, you get a free Harden or Defense Curl, or any other of those defense-raising moves without having to waste a turn using that move. In case you couldn't tell, I don't have a very high opinion of moves that are only used to change stats. Oh, you raised your critical hit ratio? Well, I used Flamethrower. Now you're dead. But this ability grants you the benefits of raising your stats without you actually having to try. This can be especially handy in the main story of the game if you happen to be using one of these Pokemon, and you can use potions and restore the health you've lost while keeping the buffs you've gained. I'm sure it does cap out at a certain point, like when you run into a wild Metapod and it eventually just says his defense won't go any higher, but getting to that point just by battling like you would normally is what makes Stamina so good. What gives it the advantage over other abilities that change stats like Berserk or Shields Down is that it happens every time you're hit instead of only triggering once your health is below half. giving multiple opportunities to gain from it in a single battle, instead of waiting around for a one-time boost. The only problem with stamina is that it's only available to one Pokemon right now, but they probably did that on purpose since they realize how powerful it can be. Number 3. Dazzling and Queenly Majesty. Speed priority has been a staple of the Pokemon games since the very beginning. Ever since that first Rattata outsped your Pidgey to kill it, we learned just how crucial priority of moves can be, and it's only escalated over the generations. There are no less than 12 speed tiers that every move can fall into, with increased priority going all the way up to +5, and decreased priority bottoming out at -7. The abilities Dazzling and Queenly Majesty prevent any of the increased priority moves from being used against these Pokemon. Come to think of it, you could probably add Psychic Surge since it activates Psychic Terrain that prevents priority from any Pokemon in contact with the ground, except that the terrain eventually ends after a set number of turns, and the stipulation that they have to be on the ground is just too arbitrary. The terrain moves are really weird. But I'm not quite sure why they decided to have 2 new abilities introduced in the same generation that are literally the exact same thing. Why couldn't they just share one new ability? You're telling me that Serena couldn't be considered dazzling in some way? And I'm not sold on the name Queenly Majesty, I just think it's far too limiting. I mean honestly, how many Pokemon are regal enough to be considered a queen? Maybe just calling it Majesty would have made it easier to give other Pokemon access to it in the future. But then Dazzling and Majesty aren't really that far apart, so we're back to making it a shared ability in name as well as functionality. Regardless, both abilities are incredibly useful. What I don't know for sure is if this applies only to attacking moves, or if all increased priority fails, like Helping Hand and Protect. I also don't know if it can stop other abilities that increase the priority of certain moves, like Gale Wings, which we'll talk about in another video, which increases the priority of flying type moves, or the new ability Triage, which increases healing. If you're facing a Bruxish, can you not use Recover at all? That might be slightly overpowered, but then again, I suppose that's why they're keeping these abilities so exclusive for now. Number 2. Disguise. Mimikyu made a huge impression when it was first released, with a combination of an interesting design and a heart-wrenching backstory, like another certain lonely Pokemon we know. Many people declared it as one of their favorite new Pokemon, and even insisted on trying to use one on their team. They were rewarded with their dedication to this cuddly little monster with a fantastic unique ability in Disguise. Disguise allows Mimikyu to be hit once without taking any damage until the disguise breaks. This is the equivalent of having a free substitute at the start of every battle. Furthermore, it can't be broken by entry hazards or weather, so you're guaranteed one free move. Substitute is often used in competitive play to offer protection from attacks at the cost of a quarter of your health. Disguise activates without taking any of your health. Substitutes are commonly used to set up stat raises, using moves such as Sword Dance or Bulk Up, both of which Mimikyu can use. Also, it can actually learn Substitute. Can you imagine how annoying that kind of overkill would be? Mimikyu is a Pokemon with a lot of heart and charisma, and I wouldn't expect it to have a unique ability any less astounding than this one. Congratulations, Mimikyu! You finally got the attention you've always wanted. Number 1. Corrosion. Status conditions are useful when you use them, and annoying when used against you. It always helps to get that little bit of chip damage off on the opponent, or maybe just helping ensure a successful capture. Of course, there are always a few annoying Pokemon that are immune to your status conditions. Until now. Corrosion can poison any type of Pokemon, regardless of standard type resistances. Never before has one Pokemon had such bizarre power over all others to make it an even playing field. As of right now, Salandit and Salazzle are the only Pokemon in the game that can afflict poison and steel types with the poisoned status condition. A feat that was impossible for so long is now a reality just because these two fire lizards felt things needed to be a little less predictable. Got a Registeel that just won't go away? No problem, just poison it, it'll get worn down eventually. Turns out that Drapion is more trouble than you thought? Don't worry, even though it's immune to its own poison, I guess yours is stronger because there it goes. I'm not sure what made them decide to take this drastic route, but it's impressive to say the least. Do you know of a Pokemon that can paralyze electric types? No. Do you know of a Pokemon that can burn fire types? It's only a matter of time. Now that we've seen the impossible can happen, I'm sure there will be many more Pokemon to come designed specifically around subverting everyone's expectations. The only downside I've noticed is that it seems to ignore typings but not other abilities, because immunity still prevents any poisoning. So as I've speculated in some of the other entries, no ability is the overall trump card, and there are still ways to counter everything here. While I do admit this placement is a bit partial, you have to admit that the flagship team for the impossible is deserving of the number 1 spot. So those are my best abilities for Sun and Moon. What did you think of these new abilities? Are there ones you didn't even know existed? Let me know which ones you're most excited to try down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today, and we'll see you around next time.